As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
For everyone watching or listening, we've been attending the Esports Business Summit. They were foolish enough to invite me to speak. And
can I tell the story?
Sure, yeah, Jimmy, go ahead.
Since I was in the audience, as a impartial bystander, Paul was on a branding panel, and they were prompted a question as to what the purpose of media and content is, and everyone shared their opinion. About 4 other people on the panel, and then Paul's turn comes last, and he goes, "Well, you're all wrong, and here's why." So for those of you.
Jimmy, you're muted there.
Yeah, you muted yourself somehow. I don't know how that happened.
I'm on my laptop and the trackpad is so sensitive, so I apologize. I'll try not to touch it.
Owen, I just want to read some of these. Owen says, "Hey everyone." Goyo says, "Hello." "Hey guys." "Hey Owen." "Hey Goyo." Wade says, "Hi everyone. How's the zeitgeist at the summit?" Excellent question, Wade. And Six Cannon says, "Is that a green screen?" I don't know who you're referring to, because I feel like
I think it's you.
They
Paul.
all could
be.
It
does look like a green screen.
It's not. Yeah. No, beautiful view of the Strip and the Bellagio fountains. It just makes me look like the Bond villain that should be in Jimmy's Bond room there. Wade says, "How was the zeitgeist at the summit?" Jimmy, what would you say about the zeitgeist at the summit?
I don't even know where to start on that.
Can I just say, here's one. Let's start with this, because we have like 20 topics to talk about this week, but I think it's worth a little bit of commentary on the conference. And I will just preface this by saying, Jim, Jimmy, was it you who asked me? No, it wasn't you who asked me. It was someone who asked me, "Paul, why do you come to these things? Like, other than to speak, right?" Like, it was a compliment, right? He's basically saying, "I know you're not learning anything here." And other than the obvious, like, networking, which is a big part of business, like, that's no question, there's a ton of value in the networking. For me, and there's no humility here, I always like to gauge, am I still like 2 or 3 steps ahead of where the industry is? Like, is my thinking, like, have they caught up, or am I still playing like 4D chess in a 3D world, right? Like, I want to sort of get a gauge of where things are at. And I will say, one of the frustrations is that I think literally every single panel I walked into, the crux of the conversation was authenticity, 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 right? And
that was the exact word I was going to use.
Like, you can fill in the blank, because it didn't matter what they were talking about. Somehow it all came back to authenticity. And I mean, I tried on the panel I was on to sort of address that, but to me that was like, if I'm to encapsulate, Wade, the theme of this conference is just all people are talking about is authenticity. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Is that?
That was the exact. I was going to say authenticity, and then I've heard a little bit about, like, blockchain and NFTs and gaming, and that crossover seems to be one of the bigger topics. But authenticity was that was truly the number one word I was going to say that I've been hearing more, or the most commonly.
The 2 points I wanted to address on that. First, Paul had an awesome commentary on the importance of authority over authenticity, and how a lot of people are focused, I think, on the wrong thing, which was really insightful. The other thing, though, is, it's hard, because you kind of want to criticize the events themselves sometimes, because perhaps the commentary, at least for us to talk about this stuff every single week for an hour and a half on the podcast and an hour and a half out on the live show with 6 or so rotating panelists, right? And it's and it's more in depth and it's more consistent, it's easy to criticize, I think, the panels or the events as a whole for being superficial, right? Or for not really getting into it. But at the same time, what are they really expected to do with all of these people for only an hour, for once a year or a quarter, or however often they're thrown? I try and give them a little bit of slack, because what they're really trying to do is start the conversation, show other people, I think, that are authorities potentially in that space, and really allow you the opportunity as the listener to then follow up directly with that person who, like the guests on our show, make themselves literally personally available to our audience and to their audience. So I did want to say, like, my main criticism is, for what I want, it doesn't get deep enough. But at the same time, it's maybe I have unrealistic expectations, coming into the event, because again, what are they supposed to do with that limited amount of time, and with these guests that are donating their time, apart from the businesses that they run. So yeah.
No, it's a good point. Look, I'm always going to be like very self-promotional. Like, my view always is, and I was very grateful to speak at this conference, and I hope I added value, or got people thinking a bit different on the panel that I was on. But fundamentally, I always come back to, like, man, if people just watch the podcast and the live stream every week, like, it's like getting everything you could learn in this conference on a weekly basis as opposed to a yearly basis. I always feel good about the content we put out when I come to a conference like this, because I really do think we go deeper than you'll get here. But Jimmy, to your point, what these conferences are especially good for is to gauge, like, the overall hype and where we are in the life cycle of the industry. And there's still a lot of education that happens, right? Like, we may have heard authenticity 12,000 times, but that may be relatively new content for other people. And so, it's fascinating. I will say there were a lot. It was incredibly well put on, the event. Tons of people here, like, very promising from just health of the industry standpoint, to see this many people excited about gaming and esports and the business side of it, obviously. Lindsay, I don't know if you had thoughts there, or if you just mic making noise, or.
Yeah, it fell out and it was a whole thing for a second. Anyways, we're back. No, I was actually, Paul, you keep copying the points that I'm going to say, so that's a little bit inconvenient for me.
Sorry.
Because precisely what I was going to say is that it's much easier to get into that depth and into all those topics, Jimmy, that you were talking about when you have a weekly podcast and a weekly after show. It's much easier to go deeper. I'm excited to see where these conferences kind of go, I still feel like we're slowly moving out of the what is esports phase of the industry. And these types of events have been getting better, but I'm really excited to see where they're at in, like, maybe 2 or 3 years. I think we'll fully be out of that what is esports phase, and we won't have so many of the basic conversations that are repeated. That being said, I thought that I think that the conferences that you guys have attended have been really diverse in topics that they cover, and they've tried really hard to bring in not just normal speakers, which I really appreciate. So this conference, it's been a lot of fun. Learned some things, maybe not as much as one would hope to learn at a conference, but again, these are mostly for networking anyway. And I think that the podcast in this kind of format just lends itself more to learning. So I'm glad that we get to do this as well.
I did talk to them, by the way, about doing our podcast live next year at their event. So maybe we get the best of both worlds all in one place. So that'll be fun.
That would save us from leaving early to come record in our rooms.
So, that's true.
I want to say, I see in our comments, if you want to pull it up from LinkedIn, Jeff Cohen saying he was guilty about talking about
right as I walked in to go see his session, he brings up authenticity, and I know he did it on purpose. I know it was just to get back at me, even though I was there to show support for his panel. He had to bring up authenticity. I'll just read some of these comments. Robert says, hello. Hey, Robert. Great to have you here. Goyo says, I can't stick around for this one, but I'll be watching the VOD afterwards. Have a great show. Goyo, thank you.